I'm going to let Noam Chomsky, a brilliant intellectual, introduce my video.
And a lot of them are just drawn away from this. Anthropologists, sociologists, and others, they're drawn away into these arcane, in my view, mostly meaningless discourses, and are dissociated from popular struggle. And you can see the impact. I mean, I've had experiences around the third world. I'm sure we won't even talk about them, but they really indicate how the level of irrationality that grows out of this undermines the opportunities for doing something really significant and important. I mean, rationality is a tool that you better have if you want to achieve anything. Because you might as well have some grasp of what the real world is like. If you give up on that, you can be an easy victim for any outside force. It is kind of like consumerism. It diverts people from concentrating in a serious way on doing something about their own problems.
With all due respect to Noam, especially for having exposed the bastards on their activities in Central America and the abuse and the criminals who destroyed countries just for their pleasure. He exposed them in the books he wrote on Latin America. Check those out. They're quite excellent. But now I'm going to deviate away from this brain on legs. With all due respect, I'm going to just make a comment on his position. Like all of these people seem to have a position based on rationality, thought, intellect, the brilliance of their formulations. He attacks Foucault and postmodernism and the idea of being totally irrational, trying to function in a world within a realm of idiosyncrasies. What I have said, this is very true. The idiosyncrasies of thought that pass for anything meaningful to you or me are quite extraordinary these days, especially if you go to galleries and look at the work that's being produced in galleries. I'm a painter, so I reserve the right to have an opinion on the work being produced that is called art. And what makes up a valuable work of art these days is always missed. The curators have said so themselves. The good ones have said that we always miss it, and after 25 or 30, 40 years, it kind of hits. But I'm going to just comment on the idea of intellectualism. And I'm going to probably call this video Operating on Clueless. And I'm going to just preference, yes, before I go into a small dissertation on this, I'm going to talk about the idea that there are really no points of reference with these people. They try to establish they go to extraordinary lengths to establish some sort of a moral ground, a footwork. They want to get a foothold on something that he refers to as culture. His dissertation on culture are quite elaborate. Noam Chomsky has identified the nature of what it means to live in a culture through language. He's a linguist. And the points of reference are actually quite irrelevant as long as one is fixated, and this is my perception of the world, which is not what it appears to be. As long as one is fixated on the external world, you're operating on clueless, because ultimately our reference is not of an external nature, but of an internal nature, what I say. This doesn't mean there isn't a real world out there that is full of experiences of good things and bad things and all of that, but these people are trying to establish an absolutism of a kind, and he calls it rational behavior. Yeah, very true, rational behavior. It would be a good idea in culture to have rational behavior, and he's attacking and trying to understand. He thinks he has understood, but I'm going to tell you that he hasn't understood, because the very nature of our being is that there is no point of reference in the external world without the inner world having recognized, we ourselves, I recognize something within myself that gives me what I suppose I could even call a compass. I'm going to go into this in a video. This is a little preamble. All right, so Chomsky has just pounded the 1,000, he has hit the 1,000-pound nail into the wall, and he calls it rational, the rational. He throws a blanket over the disparaging remarks he makes about the postmodernists, which I fundamentally agree with, like Foucault. And I'm not that familiar with Foucault, but I know these people are demented in their formulations for the most part. They create an arbitrary world that they attach themselves to. It comes out of an idiosyncrasy, like I say. The thoughts, Norm has actually identified this quite well. In order for them to establish themselves as original thinkers, they have to somehow pretend that what they're saying has never really been thought about before. And this is the unfortunate part in intellectualism. There is an attachment to, or their desire to be thoughtful and original in some form or other means that they fundamentally have to deny the existence of everything that has come before them. And I relate to that from the point of view, I fundamentally deny everything that's come before us. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. So it's not just a random nutty guy, culture doesn't work, forget about it. No, there are good things that I want to hold on to, that even my mentors in my own history, the teachers I had, and those that are no longer alive from hundreds of years ago, they're my mentors. I find things that I appreciate and I can relate to and incorporate in my own work. Having just completed Strassman Hahn, the nuclear scientists, the painting behind me, I'll put this up so you can see it more closely. It's Strassman Hahn on their way to work, filling in the blanks on 2 unicycles. My title for this painting, and here's the painting, I'll put it up for you. And the idea of my nuclear scientists, I'm attempting with whatever I can conjure within myself to make them as ugly as possible, because these human beings are the most despicable human beings to have ever lived on the planet, to have invented a technology that could fundamentally end everything. Now I'm going to, rather than going on to that, you can listen to other of my videos, and I make reference to these 2 scientists, Strassman Hahn. Lise Meitner was also involved, but I'm going to kick the shit out of these guys in my title. Strassman Hahn on their way to work, filling in the blanks on 2 unicycles. So my point about what I went to Chomsky because he's kind of the poster child of thought in terms of moral thought. And quite frankly, I do appreciate Chomsky in the sense that he has, like I say, exposed the bastards on Latin America. He wrote quite a number of very poignant books on how the Carter administrations, even prior to Carter, went into Latin America and destroyed El Salvador, Nicaragua. All these countries were undermined by the CIA, and he exposes that. So anyway, this is credit to Noam. But here is where I am, in my own way, understanding the epic nature of the times we live in, and they all miss it. They all miss it, like the curators always miss the important work that's being done by the artists of the time. And they all miss it because the reference, like I say, the reference that they all attempt to establish are basically in the external world. Their reflections, their thoughts are reflections of their perception of the external world. And as long as we believe the world to be something that the way it appears, we're going to be off the mark. It's not going to work. Which is why I'm saying, what is the point of reference that I talk about, that I, through my videos, through my work, am establishing, have established within myself, is what is, I suppose, like I mentioned in the preamble, a moral compass. I like referring to it as conscience. And as long as we focus on the external world, it's going to be a tough slog to get any change in our lives. Notice I say in our lives, not out there, our lives. We are being ruled by Fukushima, and the reason this character has rampaged through our China shop, Strassman Han initiated, woke up this character, and this guy is running through the China shop and destroying everything. And it always was a reference to an inner war that Shiva was referring to, was a reflection of, was symbolic of, which is not being fought. The same way Chomsky, as moral as he may be, in his speech, in his dissertations, I do not get the impression that this man has actually reflected on himself to have any meaningful contribution to my life. Because ultimately, unless we go through that our own transformation, we are basically clueless, functioning on clueless. So if we hold up, if we have icons of brilliance and intellect, which is the postmodern tradition, well, not only postmodern, it's a tradition in culture, period, to attach ourselves to these fabulous thinkers. Meanwhile, people that really make a difference to us, for example, if you are, as in the Bible, the Good Samaritan, all the intellectuals and high-ups walk by the destitute in the trench, in the ditch, and the Samaritan picks them up. What is that lesson? What is that value? That there is no value in culture unless we practice through an inner compass. And what is that inner compass based on? I've always referred to it as conscience. So the reason also I'd like to just make this comment again is that I sense a great deal of frustration in the way people, on YouTube especially, present their position in terms of outrage about this character having run wild after Fukushima has blown up. And I've always said, pick your fight. And this is the most epic fight we have on our hands. But why is it? I have concluded we are unable to progress, to have any change in ourselves as long as we're fixated on the outside world. Now, it sounds like an anomaly to say, well, this is happening and the bastards are doing whatever they want. We got to stop them. We're not going to be able to stop them. Old boss, new boss. If you have a revolution, what's going to happen is you're going to bring in the same old, same old. It's been even sung about. Who was that? The Who in their same old old boss, new boss song. They all get it. We get it. We understand. So what is going on in that song, Old Boss, New Boss? There is no point unless we individually have done the inner work to position ourselves in a day-to-day sense on a moment-by-moment basis to have that reference reflected in our actions. And Noam Chomsky's fabulous, or Foucault's, or Nietzsche's, or Kant's, or Hegel's fabulous dissertation, Plato, Socrates. I do love Socrates' and stuff. But to feed ourselves on that intellectual rationalism is irrelevant without that point of reference, because we're operating on clueless. So no matter how much our intellect races ahead and establishes itself as the functioning mechanism in our lives, we're still stuck in the muck, in the fucky muck that we're in, because we're operating on clueless without that inner function. So here is my the point within this in terms of what is it that I can offer besides fundamentally, firstly, to myself, but what is it that I can offer as a suggestion, not as a rule? I'm not going to say you have to stand on the barricades and protest Fukushima, although that's a great idea. That's a great idea. If we all would do that, we would get some results on these bastards actually recognizing the shitter that we're in. But it's not going to be effective without this, what I say, and I'm going to refer to this once more, and each person is capable of activating this, and that is through whichever form, whether you go to art school or yoga or reflection time or meditation, whatever, what it is that allows us to get in touch with our calling, the thing that we really want to do. what it is in our lifespan, which is relatively short, what it is that when we're finished with everything, we say to ourselves, no one else, to ourselves, I really did what I wanted to do, and I made the place better. And it has nothing to do with being rational. It has something, the point of reference is not rational. The point of reference is establishing through our effort to become better and follow that within us that we're meant for. Any other word, I don't know what to call it. This thing is within each of us that we have to find in some way. And you find it when you feel those sweet moments in day-to-day activities, whether it's in relationships or actions. You're renovating your house and you do it the way that you really want to do it, and you have that sweet feeling about the things that you're doing. So like I have a very sweet feeling about this painting. And to end, I mean, I'm not going to explain it, but just suffice it to say that they're filling in the blanks. So if you look at this painting, I'll put it up to end this video. These two nuclear scientists are filling in the blanks. So anyway, I was listening to Chomsky. I enjoy listening to Chomsky from the point of view he's like a brain on legs. And in the background, I kind of formulate stuff. And generally speaking, I enjoy taking opposition to something that I find universally accepted, whether it's by 10 people who are really influential and say, oh, brilliant, brilliant, or by billions of people that say brilliant, brilliant. I don't care. I will stand, I will test it within myself to see if it works. And if it works, I'll give credit. I'll give credit. And there are people and artists that are doing work. I just finished being part of a group show in London, Ontario, and there was an artist. She's a young artist, extremely talented, wonderful, wonderful artist. And I might put up a video of that show. But anyway, that's what I thought I'd say today. Strassman and Hahn on their way to work, on their unicycles, filling in the blanks.